is Sunny. I'm with UnoCoin. We're one of the leading Bitcoin companies in India. We have about 15,000 users, and we're growing really fast. We just broke our volume record this month, and I just wanted to kind of help. I wasn't here in the morning, I apologize, so I wanted to just at least explain Bitcoin in my layman terms. So the best way for me to understand Bitcoin is, do you guys, by the way, who has known about Bitcoin for less than 3 months? Anybody in the room? One person? Okay, who's like utterly confused by Bitcoin? Nobody? Everyone gets it? Okay, so Bitcoin is a pretty confusing topic. The best definition that I've heard is Bitcoin is the world's first open source, decentralized digital currency and payment network. So the reason most people find Bitcoin confusing is because it's two things in one. It's both a digital currency, kind of like gold, rupees, or dollars. There's a value associated with it. When we first found out about Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin was about 500 rupees. Today, Bitcoin's worth about 15,000 rupees. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is it's also a payment rail. It's kind of like Amex or Western Union or PayPal. They're rails for moving value from one point to another, and to do it instantaneously and almost for free is, I think, pretty revolutionary. The best analogy that I personally like, because Bitcoin is very confusing, but the thing that makes sense to me is if you guys remember what life was like before email, right? So if you wanted to send a message, let's say to somebody on the other side of the world, you'd have to take out a piece of paper, your pen, write it out, put it in an envelope, walk over to a post office, spend lots of money, lots of time. Maybe 2 weeks later, your grandmother on the other side of the world will finally, get the message. And then email came about, and behind email there's this protocol called SMTP. That protocol is not owned by a government or a person or a company. It's just this open source protocol. And companies like Google and Hotmail and Yahoo have built on top of SMTP to enable free and instantaneous communication. So Bitcoin is very similar. If you think about the money situation today, when I'm, let's say, in Canada and I want to send $100 to my grandmother in Kolkata, it's almost impossible because of the fees. You can't even send that small of amount, right? And the other thing is it takes a long time. So if she needs money very quickly, it's not a very efficient means of transferring money in the system we have today. So Bitcoin, similarly to SMTP, like voice over IP, like HTTP, like TCP/IP, like HTML, they're kind of the plumbing behind the internet. Imagine Bitcoin to be the first source of plumbing that enables value transfer. You can transfer a paisa, a fraction of a paisa. You can transfer $1 million literally at the click of a button from one person to another without a middleman. So that's my, quick elevator pitch on Bitcoin. I don't want to take up everyone's time. So were there any questions? Does anyone have any questions about Bitcoin? No? You got your hand up, Michelle? No questions?
No question. Probably aware of everything already.
Okay. So go ahead.
It's not a question, it's more a comment.
Yeah.
I feel like we're talking about applications of Bitcoin as payment rail, etc. And at least what interests me is the blockchain technology at the heart of it, which essentially is a way to keep records that everybody trusts.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And Bitcoin as a currency transfer and store of value is just an instance, an application of that larger technology.
Exactly.
Right? And that larger technology can be used in multiple ways. Maybe it can be used for land records that 50 people trust. So it's a way of keeping a record that a set of people trust, as opposed to anything else, at the very heart of it, right? That's why you take out the central ledger that RBI keeps today, or central banks keep today, and give it to people, and 100 nodes keep it for RBI. So that can be done for any central registry.
True.
So I think if we talk only about a particular application, that limits our thinking on what is possible with this technology.
Yeah, just to speak to that. So I think there's a lot of, last 3 to 6 months, there's been a lot of kind of commentary along those lines that Bitcoin is less interesting, it's blockchain that's truly revolutionary. I'd like to push back on that a little bit. So I'm originally from Canada. I've done international business development. So my wife's from Colombia. My parents live in the U.S. I have family in India. So I've traveled to hundreds of countries and cities around the world. And the thing I found is that in most places, people are different. They eat different food. They have different cultures, different religions. They dance differently. They have different songs. Everything is different. There's just one, and religions are different too, right? Governments are different. But the one common denominator that I found unanimously, whether it's my 4-year-old cousin or my 85-year-old grandmother, and that's money. So I contest that money is quite possibly the most important thing on the face of this planet. And I think the fact that Bitcoin challenges and makes us question what is money is revolutionary in itself. I'll just take a step back. So I agree, blockchain is revolutionary. With blockchain, you'll be disrupting law firms potentially. You'll be disrupting anything that requires trust. However, I would contest that money is the biggest thing that everyone cares about. So it's huge. Any other questions? No? Great. Thanks, guys.